April 1st has always been a sad day for me. My paternal grandfather, who lived in Iowa about 3 hours away, died back in 2009 on April 1st. We got the call about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, saying that he had passed away. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, we backed up our car, drove the 3 hours to Iowa to handle his services. Even though he lived far away, it was always really fun to go and visit him and my grandma. I remember during Easter time, I would get to spend, a week or so at a time at their house. Uh, the day of his funeral is actually held back in Iowa. We came back home the day of his funeral, and immediately upon getting back into town, my dad and I went and got matching tattoos of crosses with our last name in the center. Uh, I think about my grandpa often, but seem to think of him more so on April 1st. Um, April 1st for everybody else is always a big joke, playing pranks on each other and telling funny stories. When I got to work April 1st this year, I had an email from my sister-in-law. She works at a gym here in town, asking me if I'd canceled my gym membership. Of course, after a lengthy conversation, she told me that it was an April Fool's joke, that I was still very much in the system. That night, April 1st, Matt came home, told me he had a surprise for me. Now, I should have known something was strange when he had told me that he had been to Barnes & Noble that day, and that's where he got my surprise, because Matt doesn't read, Matt doesn't go to Barnes & Noble, but sure enough, he presented me with a book called John Lennon Letters. When I read the inside flap, I find that it's a collection of 300 letters and postcards that John Lennon sent throughout his life. Matt knows that I'm a very big John Lennon fan and knows that I'm an avid reader. So he definitely did good in choosing his surprise. Like I said, I definitely should have known that something was fishy, but I was still excited. I went to dig into the book, and the first thing I noticed when I open it is that the pages are taped to the inside flap, and there's a cutout on the right-hand side of the book with a sticky note over the cutout that says, "Will you marry me?" I, being that it was April 1st, was skeptical, so I kept asking him if he was serious, and all he could do was smile and reply to turn over the sticky note. When I turn over the sticky note, there's another note that says, "This is not an April Fool's joke," and my ring box is sitting there in the opening of the book with a ring very much inside. I took the ring out, examined it, tried to make sure it wasn't fake, kept asking if he was serious, and he said yes, but before I could answer, he gave me a second copy of the John Lennon book, because he told me that knowing how much I like to read and how much I love John Lennon, he figured that I would be upset if I found out that the book that he cut all to pieces was a first edition. I was a little upset, but that's where he said the second book came into place. He was going to save it for my birthday or for Christmas, but he knew that if I found out the first book was a first edition, he figured I'd be upset. So he gave me the second copy. So now I have both, one with the cutouts and my little ring box still taped inside, and the second book completely unharmed, both first editions. So yes, April 1st, typically a funny kind of jokey day for everybody else. For me, 5 years ago, it turned out to be a very sad day with my grandpa passing. Now in 2014 and forward, it is a very happy day for us and my